You can feel it in your body when a decision is coming. Your chest tightens a little, your mind speeds up, and suddenly the world turns into a courtroom. Evidence, arguments, memories, fears. You tell yourself you are being logical, but you already know the truth. Something in you has already leaned one way, and now your thoughts are lining up behind it like they were always meant to. If you have ever looked back and thought, "Why did I do that?" you are not broken. You are human. Your brain is not designed to be a perfect judge. It is designed to be a fast survival machine. It uses shortcuts. In psychology, we call these shortcuts cognitive biases, meaning predictable bends in thinking that help you decide quickly, but sometimes pull you away from what is true. Late at night, when the room is quiet, you can almost hear the machinery. The mind does not just process information. It filters it, it edits it, it highlights what matches your mood. It downplays what threatens your identity. And it does all of this before you even notice you are doing it. One of the strongest biases is confirmation bias, which means you naturally look for evidence that agrees with what you already believe, and you ignore or discount evidence that challenges it. It feels like being fair. It feels like doing research. But it is often just collecting supporters for a conclusion you already chose. You see it when you are deciding whether to trust someone. If you want to trust them, you notice their warmth, their consistency, the one time they showed up. You explain away the missed call. You minimize the strange tone. If you do not want to trust them, you do the opposite. Same facts, different story. The mind is not a camera. It is a storyteller. And the scary part is that confirmation bias is not only about facts, it is about identity. If I see myself as careful, I will find reasons that I was careful. If I see myself as unlucky, I will collect proof that life is against me. If I see myself as the kind of person who always gets abandoned, my attention will hunt for signs of distance like a heat-seeking signal. Attention is the gatekeeper. What you pay attention to becomes your reality. That is not spiritual. It is cognitive. Your brain cannot process everything, so it selects. And once it selects, it starts to build a world. Another bias that quietly runs many lives is the availability heuristic. That is a fancy term for this simple rule. The easier something is to recall, the more likely you think it is. If you watched a video about a plane crash, flying suddenly feels dangerous. If you just heard about a friend getting cheated on, trust feels risky. Your brain uses vivid memories like a probability calculator, even when the math is wrong. This is why news and social media can hijack your decisions. Not because you are weak, but because your mind is designed to treat vivid information as urgent information. Bright, emotional, and recent events feel more common than they are. And when you are stressed, this effect gets stronger. Stress narrows attention. It makes the mind scan for threats. It makes the loudest memory feel like the truest one. Now let me take you into a moment that feels real. You are standing in a grocery store aisle. Fluorescent lights, a low hum. You are staring at two nearly identical products. One says limited time offer. Your hand moves before you finish thinking. That is scarcity bias. Scarcity bias means you want something more when it seems rare or about to disappear. It is not just marketing. It is an ancient survival impulse. If resources might run out, grab now. This is also why you sometimes accept a bad deal, stay in a draining situation, or chase a person who gives you mixed signals. The moment something feels scarce, your brain shifts into urgency. Urgency is a powerful drug. It makes you confuse speed with wisdom. Another bias that keeps people stuck is loss aversion. Loss aversion means losses feel heavier than gains. Losing $100 hurts more than gaining $100 feels good. This is why you might avoid a necessary change. Even when the new path could be better, the mind fixates on what might be lost. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar possibility. Loss aversion shows up in relationships. You might stay because you fear the loss of routine, the loss of shared history, the loss of being chosen. You tell yourself you are being loyal. Maybe you are. But sometimes it is just the brain protecting itself from the sharp feeling of loss. And then there is the sunk cost fallacy. This is the bias that says, I have already put so much into this, I cannot stop now. Sunk cost fallacy means past investment pressures you to keep investing, even when the future return is bad. Time, money, effort, emotional labor. The mind treats them like chains. You see it in careers, in friendships, in habits. I have already spent 10 years here. I have already apologized 100 times. I have already bought the equipment, so I have to keep doing it. But the past is gone either way. The only real question is what happens next. The sunk cost fallacy is like carrying a broken suitcase because you paid for it. You keep dragging it, not because it works, but because letting go feels like admitting you were wrong. That brings me to another bias that hides behind pride: cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance means mental discomfort when your actions and beliefs do not match. When that discomfort rises, the mind looks for a quick fix. Sometimes it changes behavior. Often it changes the story. If I believe I am a healthy person, but I keep sabotaging my sleep, my mind will try to reduce the tension. It might say, sleep is overrated. It might say, I work better tired. It might say, I will fix it later. These are not careful conclusions. They are emotional bandages. This is why self-control is not only about willpower. It is also about identity protection. Your brain wants to see you as coherent. It wants your choices to make sense. When they do not, it will bend reality until they do. That bending is not evil. It is protective. It is the mind trying to keep you from feeling shame. There is also the fundamental attribution error. That means you judge other people as if their behavior comes from their character, but you judge yourself as if your behavior comes from your situation. If someone cuts you off in traffic, they are selfish. If you cut someone off, you are in a hurry. This bias damages relationships because it makes you less curious. It makes you certain too fast. Certainty feels clean. It feels like relief. But certainty is often a sign that a bias has closed the door. Let me slow this down, because the goal is not to memorize names. The goal is to notice the feeling of a bias in your body. Bias often arrives as a mood, a tightness, a rush, a sense of obviousness. When something feels instantly clear, that is the moment to get suspicious. Not because you are wrong, but because the mind loves quick closure. A powerful bias that feeds that sense of obviousness is the halo effect. The halo effect means one positive trait makes you assume other positive traits. Someone is attractive, so you assume they are kind. Someone is confident, so you assume they are competent. Someone speaks smoothly, so you assume they are honest. Your brain is trying to save time by using one signal to fill in the rest. This can be useful. It can also be expensive. It is how people get pulled into bad deals, unhealthy dynamics, and false mentors. And it is also how you might underestimate yourself. If you have one trait you dislike, you might let it contaminate your whole self-image. I made one mistake, so I am a failure. That is the horn effect, the negative version. One flaw becomes a shadow over everything. So what do you do with all of this in real life when you have to decide? I start by respecting the fact that my brain is not neutral. I treat my first reaction as data, not as truth. That alone changes things. When I feel urgency, I ask what is creating the urgency. When I feel certainty, I ask what I might be protecting. When I feel fear, I ask if the fear is about danger or about discomfort. There is a simple psychological skill that helps here called affect labeling. Affect labeling means naming what you feel in plain words, like I feel anxious or I feel ashamed. When you label an emotion, your brain often calms down. The alarm system quiets a little. You get access to more flexible thinking. It is like turning on a lamp in a dark room. The room is the same, but you stop tripping over your own thoughts. I also watch for the way my attention narrows. When I am tired, hungry, lonely, or stressed, my decisions get more biased. That is not a moral failure. That is biology. Self-regulation is often about timing. If you decide while dysregulated, you will call it intuition. Later, you will call it a mistake. Another thing I do is I separate the decision from the story. The story is the movie in my head. The decision is the next action. Biases love stories because stories feel complete. They have heroes and villains. They have meaning, but reality is often unfinished. If I can reduce the story, I can see options again. Sometimes I notice that I'm searching for permission, not truth. I keep reading, keep asking, keep comparing. That is not curiosity. That is anxiety wearing a lab coat. Anxiety wants certainty, but life does not offer certainty. It offers trade-offs. This is where locus of control matters. Locus of control means where you believe control lives, inside you or outside you. If your locus of control is mostly external, you feel pushed by events, people, and luck. Biases hit harder then because you are looking for something to cling to. If your locus of control is more internal, you focus on what you can influence. Not everything, but something. That shift reduces panic and it makes better decisions possible. And there is self-efficacy, which means your belief that you can handle what happens next. Not that everything will go well, but that you can respond. When self-efficacy is low, you cling to familiar patterns. When it is higher, you can tolerate uncertainty. Many bad decisions are not about wanting the wrong thing. They are about not trusting yourself to survive the consequence of choosing. So I practice a different question.